Hello dear learners, today I welcome you for lesson 4 of chapter 3, that is forces. Here is the contact information. If you face any difficulty regarding today's lesson, you can contact. The learning outcomes of today's lesson are that you should be able to explain the effects of friction. You should be able to describe about the negative and positive effects of friction. The content which we are going to cover in today's lesson. Number one is effects of friction, negative effects of friction, positive effects of friction, and then practice questions. As in previous lesson, we have discussed about friction. So again, we are going to refresh about the concept about friction. Friction is the contact force that opposes or tends to oppose motion between surfaces in contact. So if you see here this example, two blocks are here. If we drag this block to any direction, either in this direction or in this direction, if you see here in the picture, they are moving or dragging this block towards this direction, that is east, or you can say right. So there is some friction. Why that friction is occurring? Because two surfaces are in contact with each other. So whenever there is a contact of two surfaces, friction will occur there. And friction basically opposes the motion, resist to move the object on that surface. So if you see why it is happening, though the surfaces of these two objects are very smooth, but they are not perfectly smooth. Why? Because there appears some pits and bumps, and we can see only these pits and bumps when we use microscope. Under microscope we can see these pits and bumps, and these are also known as cold welds. So this is the reason why friction occurs between the surfaces which are in contact with each other. Effects of friction. The effects of friction can be positive or negative. If you see here, the effect of friction are categorized further into two parts. One is negative effect and the other one is positive effect. So some of the positive and negative effects of friction are listed below. You can say that when positive effects of friction, we can say that we can walk without slipping. Such friction is positive effect. If friction is not, then what will happen? We will be not able to move because there will be a lot of slipping, slippery there. So that is why we call that friction in such scenarios is known as positive effect of friction. Or in other words, you can say that where friction is supporting us, or where the friction is acting to keep the object's balance, there the friction effect will be positive. Similarly, moving vehicles are able to slow down. Why? Because brake, when we apply brake, friction is occurring there. So it is also positive effect of friction. Negative effect of forces, movement of objects without wheels. If wheels are not present under some objects, what will happen? It is very difficult to move those objects. So friction will be more there, and we need to apply more force to move such objects. So this is that here the friction is having negative effect. Moving parts in engines, motors and machines suffer wear and tear. So negative effect occurs in such moving parts. So negative effects of friction. Now we will discuss about negative effects of friction. Negative effect of friction is when wear and tear occurs. Or in other words, you can say negative friction results to the loss of functionality. If there was any negative friction, if we are continuously moving those objects, or we are taking the functionality, using the functionality of that object, what will happen? the result will be that after some time that object will lose its functionality. Why? Because negative friction is continuously occurring there. So remember, when negative effect of friction occurs, one must reduce the negative effects of friction. You have to remember this. Where the negative effect of friction is occurring, we must reduce, we must try to minimize those negative effects of friction. So how can negative effects of friction be reduced? One is that you must use wheels if possible. If you go to a shopping mall, you have seen such shopping trolleys. And what happened? In these shopping trolleys, we have wheels. If these wheels are not present, or if instead of four wheels, three wheels are there, what will happen? Friction is occurring at more friction, or negative effect of friction is occurring at one end where the wheel is not present. And in replace, in corresponding to that, what you have to do, you have to apply more force, and there is some irritating noise as well. And what is happening, the floor is also getting some lines on it. Why? Because this metal part is moving on that surface. So can you imagine pushing a shopping trolley that does not have wheel? In this trolley you are not having any wheel. So what will happen if the trolley is not having the wheel? What will happen? Imagine it, if you want to push this, is it easy to push this trolley without wheels? You would need to, what you have to do, you would need to exert a great amount of force to overcome the large magnitude of friction that is going to occur between the metal basket and the floor. So to remove this friction, or to reduce this friction, that the large magnitude of friction, we use wheels. So you have seen that in this case, you can see here as well, that in the case of shopping trolley you can use wheels. Wheels greatly reduce the friction between the basket and the metal. In this way, smaller force can be applied to move the shopping trolley easily on the floor. So wheels are one of the way to remove or to reduce the negative effect of friction. So here is one more way, that is ball bearings. Ball bearings are used to reduce friction between moving parts of machines, cars and bicycles. Ball bearings are placed between moving parts, and ball bearings roll around and prevent moving parts from rubbing against each other. You can see here you have one surface that is known as outer race, and one more surface that is inner race, and in between this you have balls and cage. These balls and cage will rotate between these two rays, that is outer race and the inner race. So what will happen when we use such ball bearings in the moving parts, in the machines, or in the cars? And might be possible you have seen such ball bearings in different vehicles and in different parts of the machines as well. So what happened, if you see here in this case, here we have balls which are fitted in between the outer race and the inner race. So they provide or help in the reduction of negative effect of friction. So this is one way that you can reduce negative friction by the use of ball bearings. So what happens in this case, if you see what will happen, this reduces the wear and tear of moving parts. If ball bearings are not here, this end and this end will slide with each other, and then there will be a lot of friction. So when bearings are used in moving parts, this negative effect or negative friction reduces. Lubricants and polished surfaces also help to reduce the negative effect of friction. You might have seen that we have some mechanical parts like this. Even in engines, what we do, we apply a layer of lubricant, such as oil, grease, and we apply these lubricants between surfaces which are in contact can greatly reduce friction. If you see here, these two parts are in contact with each other, and we are applying some lubricant here so that friction can reduce here. Lubricants are frequently used between the moving parts of an engine to reduce wear and tear, and due to this it helps in the good life of the engine and its part. It prolongs the life of the engine as well and other mechanical parts. Even if you see here, polishing a surface removes some irregularities. This can also reduce friction between surface in contact. Here you can take the example that what we do, we mostly polish over furniture. Why? So that we can remove the irregularities, so that surface appears that it is smooth, and in this way we can also reduce the friction, because if we want to move any book or any object on the surface of the table, if it is polished, then the friction which is going to occur in between the surface of the table and the object, it will be reduced. So here we have some positive effects of friction. Chalk is one of the example, and mostly it is used by rock climbers because they need to have firm grip on the rock surface with their hands and feet. You can see here the chalk is applied on the fingers. Similarly, due to which the person is climbing the rocks, climbing this wall, you can say. So they usually use chalk powder on their hands to absorb perspiration and improve their grip. So this is one way how we can make the use of chalk for the positive effects of friction. You can use grooves. Friction is important to the motion of vehicles. If friction is not present, what will happen? A vehicle cannot move because there is then a slippery area only. If friction is not present, so the tire will slip there. So in what we do, we need friction which enables the tires to have good grip with the road surface and roll without slipping. If friction is absent, then the surface is slippery. They will not roll properly. And if friction is present, it enables the tires to grip the road surface and roll without slipping. On a rainy day, a vehicle may skid on wet roads if tires are not having good grooves. So what are grooves? In its tires needs to have more grip on the road to prevent skidding. So why its tires? Because only the object of the vehicle which is in contact with the road, that is tire. So its tires need to have more grip on the road to prevent skidding. This is why tires are designed with grooves. Grooves are basically spacings, these spacings. So how they help? That they can quickly channel water out from underneath the tires. When it is passing, the tire is passing from a wet road, what will happen? The water will split from these grooves. So this is the way that how you can prevent or how you can avoid the car to skid on a wet road. So here are the practice questions. How can you reduce the effect of friction on the motion of a body? So we have studied some effects of friction. Now you have to think that where we have to reduce the effect of friction, either when there is negative effect of friction or when there is a positive effect of friction. So according to that, wherever we have to reduce the effect of friction, you have to tell that here in this scenario, in this effect, we have to reduce the effect of friction, and you have to tell by which means, by which ways we can reduce the effect of friction. The question two is, which effect of friction is better, negative or positive? And you have to explain this as well. So that's it for today's lesson. Thank you so much. If you have not subscribed the channel, do it, and do not forget to hit the like button.